Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
What is awesome health? It's actually an acronym that stands for air, water, exercise, sunshine, optimizers, mental beliefs and attitudes, and education. These are the pillars of peak health, and my team and I have created a free 12-week course that you can use to transform. Each day, you'll get a written and video lesson delivered to your inbox. Everything is covered from the foundations of digestion to advanced alternative therapies few people know about. And again, it's 100% free. Just go to bioptimizers.com. That's bioptimizers.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we have a modern day strongman joining us. You know, whether it's pulling fire trucks by his hair, juggling flaming kettlebells, and supporting over a half ton on his neck. But beyond all these wild feats, he's pushing the potential of human endurance, naturally redefining health and wellness through ancient herbal wisdom. As the co-founder of Lost Empire Herbs, he's been helping thousands of men and women unlock peak performance and health since 2012. Logan inspires a vibrant community of 30,000 plus followers on social media across YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and has authored several books, including the well-known titles Mental Muscle and Power by Nature. And our guest today is Logan Christopher. So we're going to talk a little bit about performance-based herbalism, how it works, how it can be effective in shaping a more fulfilled, active lifestyle, while incorporating ancient herbs or ancient herbal wisdom, and that's a very important element, into modern training. He can give some insights on how he gets an edge in fitness. Logan joins us from Salt Lake City today. Welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me.
So how did you get into this whole strongman thing? You know, the idea of a half ton on your neck, or, you know, juggling flaming kettlebells. If anybody's juggled kettlebells, that's pretty tough, but putting them on fire is another level. What got you into all this sort of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting path because I wasn't born strong or athletic. Like, I didn't play sports when I was younger. I played football in high school, but I wasn't any good. And the only reason I did it was because my older brother did it and kind of made me do it. But really, it was shortly after high school. I was trying to get fit just to like look good at a commercial gym. That's all I was exposed to at the time. But my brother told me about a guy called Matt Fury who was teaching these crazy body weight exercises.
Oh, Matt Fury,
so,
yeah. He's a blast from the past. Matt Fury's a great guy.
For sure. So I got started with his training there, and with this, unlike what I wasn't really seeing results in the gym. I'm kind of the classic hard gamer type, and it just wasn't getting anywhere for me. With Matt's stuff, I started seeing results, and yes, the body weight exercises were great, but I kind of stumbled into some of the keys of effective training at that time. So from the body weight training, that led me into the kettlebells, which are also becoming popular at the time with Pavel and various other people involved. And then got into grip strength, and I read this biography of an old-time strongman called the Mighty Atom, who was way back in the vaudeville era and would do shows, bend spikes, bite through nails, all kinds of crazy stuff. Whatever reason, I was having a lot of fun with this different training. I was like, okay, strongman, that seems like something fun. Because I had been like a weak person, literally, I was like, let me become a strongman, and that's going to be my path forward in life. So I found some people that were doing that, kind of learned more, and just one step in front of the other. Soon enough, I was doing those crazy feats of strength that you talked about right there.
What do you feel is kind of like, because that was a big element, if you read the old historically, whether it was Sir or, Sandow, and all of these guys doing what today seems like just incredible lifts. This is pre-steroids, pre-chemicals, pre-growth hormone, all the hormone enhancement. But many of those strength feats back 100 years ago weren't.
Yeah, it's interesting because the ones that we as humanity continued to focus on like squats, deadlifts, bench press, like that stuff, the records from that time are not that great compared to what's now for the most part. But a lot of with the old time strongmen, they are doing some very interesting feats and lifts that you don't see very often today. So Arthur Saxon was another one there.
Yep.
He was called the Iron Master, and he specialized in a exercise called the bent press. So not a bench press, but the bent press, also known as a screw press. And this would involve lifting a weight overhead, but really in doing it, your body is falling away from it as your arms straightens. So it's not a press where you're using your triceps and shoulder muscle. Although those get involved a little bit, it's really a much more dynamic, very skill-based, structure-based exercise. It's a lot of fun. He put up 375 pounds in this lift, or 370 pounds, and no one has come close to that record. There were several other guys that around that day could do in the 200s, but today, like, I'm one of the best bench pressers around. I've lifted 175 pounds was my best bench press. I'm definitely lankier than Arthur Saxon was, so having a more compact body type is going to be advantageous to that lift. But so part of it was this focus on some different lifts, and just obviously things were different, quite a bit simpler back then. So there was kind of less knowledge in certain ways, but then more focused on different things. So that's why some of those records still stand the test of time, and definitely people were just focusing on things in different ways.
How do you feel the differences from the old time strongman to, like, say, modern day strongmen? So now we have like the strongman competitions and things like that. Do you see a lot of crossover, or do you see a very different, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, so with the old time strongman, that is performance based, as in you are doing a show to wow an audience. So strongmen were entertainers first and foremost, and this is something that's very different. Although people watch modern day strongmen on ESPN, here it is competition based. So that is one of the main things. There certainly is overlap between the two, and both of them were definitely very strong, and both of them can be great ways of training, going to more old time strongmen or a modern strongman style. But there is some of the differences there. And generally, the modern strongman, the bigger you are, the stronger you're going to be able to be. They do have some weight classes in there, but everyone focuses on the biggest classes. Whereas with the old time strongman, some of these were actually really small guys. Like the Mighty Atom was not a big guy. Maxic was quite small. So with the weightlifting, there's definitely a bit more of the weight classes involved too. But there's a difference between just competing in strength and then wowing people out there, specifically people that don't have any knowledge of strength. Like, someone does a deadlift, picks a heavy weight up off the ground. The average person out there, maybe some people have done deadlifts, but that's not that impressive. You lift a person overhead, might be much less of a weight. You might be using leverage and different things, but it connects to an audience much more. So that's some of the key points. But I would say overall, just either way, there's valuable ways of training and kind of valuable secrets as far as health and fitness involved.
Yeah. So how much of quote unquote strongman training would you account to strength, and how much would you account to skill development? Because there's a crossover there, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of skill involved. And the truth is there's skill in doing a push-up, right? So for the most part, when people think fitness, it's about like the muscles, but that's really just one system of tissues in the body. So skill is going to come across through the nervous system, just being able to fire more of the muscle cells, for instance. But there is the whole level of mental training that can go into it, and using tools such as visualization, hypnosis, anchoring, different things like this that can allow you to, without being any bigger muscle or any stronger, quote unquote, than you are right now, you can actually unlock more performance using tools such as that. When we get to the strongman stuff, both the old time and modern, then we're also looking at the tendons, the ligaments, even bone strength being involved in these. And these are areas that, again, the average trainer doesn't think about at all. But it is kind of useful to think about if you are going for some of these feats. And it's actually quite useful to understand for your health too. For instance, with osteoporosis or osteopenia, is the bone health going down over time, getting less strong, and can lead to breaks. And this is much more common in women than in men. And of course, there's hormonal components involved in different things, but training the bones by actually like putting heavy weight on your body, and with a short range partial or a support, for instance, you can handle much more than just you can with your muscles. This is a way to actually be training the bones, and the bone gets a signal and can lay down more bone cells, just like our muscle can get done over by doing training as well.
Yeah, I can remember reading some stuff from John Grimmick back in the day, who was both a strongman, an entertainer, and a bodybuilding champion. And he had a set in the basement, I think, where he had like 1,000 pounds hanging on chains, and he would do these like 1 inch and 2 inch things to build, so his spine and structure would get used to handling these weights, which maybe in a conventional gym that's kind of poo-pooed. How do you see the differentiation between, say, strongman moves versus, say, cosmetic fitness, which is pretty much always practiced in gyms today? And where do you train? Because a lot of these lifts, they'll throw you out of a regular gym if you're doing kind of those elements.
Yeah. Well, me personally, I've always been a garage gym sort of guy. So I definitely have my tools and power racks, so able to do different lifts like this. That being said, like, this stuff isn't as rare as it once was. So there's CrossFit gyms, there's all kinds of places that will at least entertain the thoughts of doing heavy partials compared to, say, a Planet Fitness out there. So absolutely, you can find some places to do these sort of things. So for me, it's really been much more about training for performance rather than training just for what I look like. What I've found is, and you can tell I'm not a big guy, that's just kind of my build, but I don't necessarily look like I can do the things I can do. I look reasonably fit, but you wouldn't expect that I can tear a deck of cards in half quite easily, right? So training for performance, the way I've gone at it, if you do it in a sort of holistic manner, the body will largely take care of itself, right? If you're doing things like body weight exercises and you're doing these for a significant amount of time, like, you're not going to be grossly overweight in doing that, because to be able to do these exercises, having a slimmer body is going to help with it. So for me, the performance aspect has just kind of led to the side benefit of this. So, and that's a very different way than most people are aiming at it. And well, let's just say the average way of aiming at it, if you want average results, then do that, the average out there.
What do you think are the essential elements in order to become a strong person? Like, what if you were to break that down into some frameworks, or your journey this time? How would someone saying, hey, I'd like to be a strong man, I don't know where to start, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So with fitness, the first and like probably most important key is progressive training, and really understanding that deeply. So again, I said I started out really weak. Like, I didn't look like I'd be doing these things two decades down the line. So it doesn't really matter where you're starting at, but where you want to go. So with that, understanding that, goal setting, just being able to get clear on goals and what do you actually want to do, then going after it in a ways like, if I can do this today, can I do like one more step the next day that is going to move me towards that? Then consistency and persistence is going to, of course, be very important in here. On top of that, we mentioned skill before. So doesn't matter what sort of exercise you're doing for, but learning the technique in there and realizing that technique can go really deep. There's a very common idea that technique is what keeps you safe. And while there's some truth to that, I've seen people do quote unquote perfect technique and hurt themselves. And I've seen people do horrible technique and not hurt themselves at all, right? So with the strongman art, really, there are times and places where you can break all the rules involved. But in general, starting with technique is going to be a good place to start. And so then progressively loading the body, paying attention to recovery is going to be really important. So if you are aiming for whatever the goal happens to be, but having the support coaching around you is definitely going to help as well. So those are some of the basics.
And then for a strongman, so I've got a background in bodybuilding. I did one strongman competition. I think it was around 1996, and First off, it was really tough. It was a competition over 2 days. I remember doing a
Yeah,
650.
competitions like that are brutal.
I did a 650-pound deadlift, but I had been a bodybuilding trainer and I couldn't quite lock it out. And I just kept going and cried. I remember I blew all the blood vessels in my eyes. My eyes were bleeding out of these bruises that from it was an interesting and I remember I hurt from the back of my neck to the back of my ankles. I went in with no prep, just going to do these kind of strongman type of things. I think I came second in the contest. The guy that won was like 320 pounds and was just a freak. Ended up becoming a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that the application of bodybuilding and training for muscle size or aesthetics was completely different than that world. As the intensity, I think, in strongman is significantly different. What does the training splits and recovery look like from a strength side? Because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, let me just mention something on that first. One of the things that bodybuilders are taught is to not lock out the joints, right? You want to keep the muscle under tension, and this can be very useful for hypertrophy, for breaking down the muscle so that it comes back bigger. Unfortunately, as you saw there, not getting to lockout, you had been training that sort of thing, so it was much harder to do this. And really with strongmen, while the muscles are important, again, it goes back to those other tissues I was talking about. So learning to use your body to lock out, so you're resting on the bones, not in the muscles. That's actually going to be very important to all kinds of different strongman arts. So that story right there just kind of points one of the things we were talking about there.
So going into training splits, like how many times a week do you train and how do you approach training? Is it like whole body training in all your elements? And then what does the recovery look like?
It definitely has rotated over time, and that's another principle that's worked really well for me because I like body weight training, I like lifting heavy weights, I like kettlebells, I like club bells and odd objects. You can't do everything all at once, so how I focus my training at different times does change, and it certainly has over the years. So there's been periods of time where I'm training every single day. Right now, I'm training most days in the week. I'd say 4 or 5 days per week. And I don't, it's not a muscle split as you would do in bodybuilding where chest and arms this day, legs that day. But I'm a big proponent of listening to my body. So that's something I've cultivated over the years is, everyone talks about you should listen to your body, but no one really gives you processes or really understanding of how you actually do this. So for me, when I go into the gym, I can just do an exercise, even unweighted, and based on the feedback from my body, like how fast versus slow, without trying to move faster or slower, but does the movement itself feel easy or does it feel hard? Is it clunky or is it smooth? Based on signals like this, I know whether my body is ready to train on that exercise, and then I'll be able to do it and should be able to achieve some sort of PR, whether that's more sets, more volume, higher intensity, relatively easy versus just having to work a lot harder. So for me, there is rotation of working different body parts, but for me, it's much more focused on the movement patterns. So some sort of pressing, and this could be bench press, military press, all sorts of other presses, some sort of upper body pull, which is very often pull-ups or chin-ups, love that exercise, some sort of ab work, some sort of leg work, so like some type of squat, and then a hinging movement, which is often going to be like a deadlift or kettlebell swing. Those are kind of some of the basic movement patterns of the body. So those are always in rotation. And then there may be specializing in certain things on top of that. So doing a lot of hand or grip work. One of my recent feats of strength that took me a while to work up to is, I've been ripping decks of cards for quite a few years now, but I was like, let me try to rip 2 decks of cards. So this took a while to build up to, but holding 2 decks of cards in the hands and being able to rip through that, I eventually got to that goal, and pretty proud of that one because that is significantly harder than 1 deck of card. It actually gets exponentially harder because the gripping space that you're holding is a lot harder than that. So you have to exert more strength through even more territory to get it done.
So on your split, like run me through what a week might theoretically look like for lifting? Because it's obviously very different than, say, the bodybuilding style.
Yeah, so I am typically squatting once per week. Right now, I'm doing hip belt squats, which is a way to not have the weight up on the shoulders, whether front or back squat. I have a long torso, so those exercises, I tend to feel squats more in my back than I do in my legs. So I've been playing with hip belt squats recently. So yeah, once a week seems to be enough on those. I'm doing handstand push-ups. And chin-ups also once a week, and I've been doing front levers, which is a gymnastic exercise, holding your body parallel to the ground just out from the bar, and doing that about twice per week. Then I am a different feat of strength I've been working on lately is license plate tearing, doing that once per week, then working with block weights, which is a pinch grip another day of the week. So that's most of my training, then just a little playing around with some other stuff. So yeah, a lot of my stuff right now is once per week or twice per week is often how it ends up for me.
What's the craziest thing that you've attempted to do?
Craziest. Well, some of the feats you mentioned there, it's not like I regularly pull vehicles by my hair, but there's a strongman event out in Ohio, and the guy said, "Oh, I have this antique fire truck that's 8,800 pounds. Can you pull that by your hair?" It's like, sure. All I had pulled before was a pickup truck. So I started this was progressive training once again. So I started pulling a friend's van that was much bigger. I started working up a slight incline. So it was progressively training and going out there and it's like, okay, can I possibly do this? And it was not only the biggest vehicle I'd ever pulled by my hair, but the biggest vehicle period. So it definitely was not easy. That was definitely a crazy one. Then I've been doing kettlebell juggling for a long time, and that's real fun. It's just the flipping, the spinning, and catching of a kettlebell all around the body. Just kind of built off the basics of like the kettlebell swing or the snatch, which many people listening may be familiar with. But yeah, you can add all kinds of different moves on there, and it's really fun. And I think it's valuable because it's working the body in all different positions. It's a great conditioning exercise. But I somehow got the idea is like, let me light that on fire and see what can be done with it. So that took some figuring out of how to do it. There was a Kevlar wick and lamp oil. And definitely, I like to say this about strongman stuff. If you're going to be stupid, be smart about it. So there's precautions like wetting my hair, wearing a bandana, long sleeves, had welding gloves on. And yeah, did it outside, of course. And I pulled that off. And that was definitely a fun one to do. So yeah, those are certainly some of my crazier feats of strength.
So basically, you're adding sort of an element of entertainment or extraneous perception of danger if you light something on fire.
Yeah, danger is often a big part of it. The perception of it, that's definitely going to wow an audience. Something I was working on for a little while, and this was based off a old-time strongman and wrestler, Farmer Burns. He would apparently take a hangman's drop and then be hanging while whistling Yankee Doodle Dandy. And just his neck was so strong and he was able to do it in a way that this did not break his neck and he was able to survive it. So I knew I wasn't going to take the drop. I was like, hey, maybe I can hang myself. So I did a little bit of working on that, and it's a weird feat of strength. And again, if you're going to be stupid, be smart about it. So I made sure the setup, like I wasn't actually above the ground. I made sure I never came close to blacking out, different precautions like this, but that's definitely a death-defying, quite literally feat of strength right there.
Now, do you do these in entertainment format where you're demonstrating this in public places and things like that?
A number of shows. That's not something that I'm currently doing actively out there. For my friends once in a while, or I go to a new place, I have a deck of cards, so I'll demonstrate that for everyone because that's a very portable feat of strength, whereas some others are not. But yeah, that really is kind of based around that whole showmanship aspect of it.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. How to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar. so fast it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat, or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar devouring and protein digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit because you've found a company, founded a company, and it's called Lost Empire Herbs. It's a great name, by the way. I love that name. Where did that originate? How did it contribute to your process of strength, etc.? And I'd love to know the whole backstory to that.
Yeah, so I took a very different route into herbalism than most people out there, and it was really born out of this strongman thing. So as I was doing that, I wasn't willing to do steroids, but I was like, how can I get an edge? Like, I want to be stronger, faster, all that stuff. And this led me down a number of different fields. I mentioned mental training, so I became an NLP trainer, neuro-linguistic programming. Applied.
Who'd you study with?
I studied with Robert Diltz and Judith Delosier at the University of Santa Cruz, where NLP was founded,
very cool. Yeah,
as well as a few other people.
I'm an old NLP guy. When I discovered Bandler and Grinder's books way back in college, and my wife's an NLP practitioner as well. So
nice, yeah. So I applied that to strength and fitness, which very few people have done. In particular, like visualization, working with these submodalities, the qualities of the visualization can dramatically improve your performance pretty much instantly. So I found that very useful. Hypnosis as a tool, energy medicine. I went in a bunch of different fields. I, of course, went into health and nutrition as well. And along with that came herbalism. In the beginning, I heard about Olympic athletes over in China, I believe it was, that were using cordyceps mushroom and started breaking a bunch of records. So I got some of this, I tried it out, and I noticed that my kettlebell swings were easier. Like, the breathing came easier, I had more energy. So from the get-go, I was kind of hooked. It just then took me, down the rabbit hole over the ensuing years, learning much more about herbs, both in China, Ayurveda, Western herbalism as well. There's really, doesn't matter where you are in the world, there is a system of natural herbs that can help you with all kinds of different things. But for me, the start was in a Chinese Taoist philosophy of herbs, and they really sought out the superior herbs. So the inferior herbs are what you would take when you were sick that they could get you back to health, but the superior herbs were about achieving radiant health, that is health beyond danger. And along with this, it's like these herbs are just going to help you, even if you're healthy, become even healthier, and they could help you with performance as well. So that's how I got started with the herbs, and I was using them as my secret weapon for quite a few years, and eventually partnered with my two brothers in founding the company. And in the start, it was just real small on the kitchen table. We didn't know what we were doing, and we were just doing it to fund our own supply of herbs. But the company has grown nicely since those days, and we've definitely learned a lot.
That's really cool. What are some of the herbs that maybe you can outline some of the ones that you've found effective in building radiant health or strength, or these type of things that you rely on regularly?
Absolutely. So our best-selling herb is pine pollen. It's still not well known. It is literally the pollen of pine trees, and it's pretty unique in that it is a rich source of phytoandrogens. So if people have been studying health for a while, they've probably heard of phytoestrogens. These are compounds in soy is the biggest one of these, but flax, hops, they're actually in all kinds of different foods, apples, coffee, ginseng has them, a bunch of herbs actually have them as well. And phytoestrogens are compounds that have some estrogenic action in the body. Now, I think with tofu, which can be overprocessed and definitely has a huge amount of this, it can be a problematic level for some people, but there's also health benefits to phytoestrogens, and they can definitely be helpful for balancing our hormones. But in nature, this is not nearly as well known. There are also the phytoandrogens. So these are similar to testosterone. It essentially is plant testosterone and similar compounds, but these go into the human body, and they can dock onto our receptor sites, they can have androgenic action within the body. So this is very useful for people, especially men that are having hormone decline, testosterone decline over the years. But it can be very useful for athletics, of course, supporting recovery. You know, you're not going to have great results in the gym in any sort of fitness if your testosterone levels are on the decline. So this is a great herb for that. And although it is much more well known as a men's herb, it actually works really great for women as well. Women also have testosterone. It's about 1/10 to 1/15 the amount men do, but it's every bit as important for their health. And this is something that, you know, science is just starting to catch up on and really understand that often testosterone loss can precede estrogen or progesterone loss that happens around menopause. So
How much of that are you using in a day, and how do you determine a quality source versus non-quality source?
yeah, so it's something we do at our company is third-party independent lab testing of everything that we get. So we're looking at heavy metals, aerobic platelets, all sorts of different things that are should always be done, but are not always done. And we post these lab results live on our website just so customers can come and look. And we're really transparent about what we do. With the pine pollen, you can basically take the powder or a tincture, and I'll go into a little detail on each of those. The powder, I mean, if you have pine trees, and we're recording this in springtime, so depending on where you live in the world, there may be pine trees around you, and they might be just spreading this yellow fine dust out there. So it can be a pain to collect it. But this is stuff that you can just eat it straight like that and have some decent benefits from it. So I mentioned the phytoandrogens, but it's actually just really rich in nutrition. So all kinds of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, has just tons of compounds that are going to be nourishing for your health in a variety of ways, helping with the immune system, help support liver detox, just a whole bunch of stuff. I see the pollen in the powdered form as more of a superfood. Meanwhile, the tincture, excuse me, the tincture is an alcohol extract, and the alcohol draws off those phytoandrogens and makes them available to your bloodstream. You hold it sublingually under the tongue, and this way it doesn't have to go through digestion. Yeah. In this form, it is much more powerful, much more potent for boosting testosterone. So as far as how much, really depends on the benefits you're looking for. Some people will prefer one or the other. Some people like to combine the two. And with herbs, there's not any one specific dose. You know, one person will take half a teaspoon, another person will take a couple tablespoons per day. A person will take a couple drops of the pine pollen tincture. Other people will take dropperfuls. In general, we recommend like 2 milliliters of the pine pollen tincture per day for men. For women, they can get by on a much smaller dose. We recommend starting with 1 to 10 drops per day. Because it has just such a powerful action, women definitely need much less of that. But the powdered form as a superfood, that can be the same dose for men and women.
Very cool. And you've obviously noticed a difference on that. Any reported results from taking it? What would you say that
I feel that, again, going back to not being like a weak or athletic person, I feel like I was born with less testosterone than most people, and this is unfortunately a big problem in our environment full of endocrine disrupting chemicals. We can go into some more details on that, but really people need a lot of hormone support these days because we're just being assaulted by our environment with all the xenoestrogens, which would be man-made chemicals having estrogenic action, but there's also anti-androgens, anti-thyroid chemicals having all kinds of different effects. So having some of this natural support from nature can be very helpful. So I definitely feel like the herbs have been part of my training all this time, have been something that I've been using, and I don't think I'd be where I was at today if it wasn't for this, as well as other tools that I'm using.
What are some other, maybe you got a couple more of your favorites that you like to use for your training?
Yeah, another one that's quite interesting is the Polyrhynchus ant. So this is actually an ant, the insect. but it has been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, and essentially a way that any sort of natural system of medicine would figure out what things do is not just through trial and error, but by observing nature. So ants are pound for pound the strongest creature on earth, right? They can lift many times their body weight. So some ancient Chinese person saw that and was like, oh, if I consume these ants, maybe I'll be stronger too. And obviously it doesn't work exactly like that. But an interesting thing with the ant is that it's one of the most feelable supplements. So one of the things I like to do with the whole idea of performance herbalism is not, oh, you take these herbs and it's going to improve your health, but you take these herbs and you're going to notice benefits from it. So I mentioned with the cordyceps that helping with my workouts, a lot of people notice benefits with pine pollen that could be in recovering from workouts, just feeling better, their immune system working better, sexual benefits, definitely for sure. With the ant, a lot of people will feel energy. They'll notice they have more energy, and it's certainly working on ATP and production and different things. We don't actually, there's not a lot of science on it, so how exactly the ant works still remains to be seen. But the fact is, just after hundreds and hundreds and thousands of anecdotal reports, that is a body of evidence that it is working. So of course, just feeling more energy, that's going to be a natural sort of pre-workout. And that's something that I've done with the herbs is we created what's called a Hercules formula, and that's completely herbally based, but a pre-workout formula. So, from the bodybuilding world, right, the creatines and all kinds of different stuff, but most of these are like neon colors and whatnot. So they may be supporting your workout, but at what cost to your health was really the idea that I saw with those. So it was like, okay, can I kind of reverse engineer, get some of the same effects, but with only using completely natural ingredients. So ant is definitely one of those that we have in our formula.
What is in the Hercules formula altogether?
Yeah, so it has the cordyceps mushroom that I mentioned as well, rhodiola, which is another top of the line adaptogen, one of the ones that the Russians originally were doing research on, and where the term adaptogen came from. For people not familiar with that, essentially it's going to help your body better adapt to stress, both physical and mental stress. And what is a workout besides a stressor on your body that you're trying to come back from? So those are some of the ingredients. And there's Sustanch, which is another one that's great at supporting the hormones as well as sexual function. A lot of the ones that help with the workouts also help with sexual function. It's kind of the same sort of energy behind them. This also has marrow root and shilajit. Shilajit's a very interesting one. It's one of the top anti-aging substances in Ayurvedic medicine. The nicknames for it are the destroyer of weakness and the conqueror of mountains. So when I heard that, I was like, sold. Like, I'm going to take this right? And shilajit really is a very, very amazing substance. It's full of fulvic and humic acids, which both allow like the transport of nutrients into your cell better, but also the detoxification of heavy metals and xenobiotics and different things that we're interfacing with. It really helps to ramp up the ATP production, so it's great for energy as well. It's full of trace minerals. It does a lot of different things, so that's a great one. And it tends to be a potentiator, and what that means is anything that you take with shilajit, because it can deliver it better to your cells, it's going to kind of amplify the effects. So it's great to formulate with.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of shilajit. I use it pretty much every day. And humic and fulvic acid. We actually use humic and fulvic acid in a lot of our formulas because it's such a great delivery agent.
Yep.
Any other elements that you like to use?
Let's see what else comes to mind. So with the herbs, it can be easy to like focus on like fitness and what is going to just like amp us up to be able to do it. And that's a great starting place, especially for the feelable effects. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, kind of the opposite things. So one of my favorite herbs is blue vervain. This was a herbs that was like revered for its magical purposes by the Druids. There's the idea that it was packed into the wounds of Jesus on the cross. Like there's all kinds of different stories across the land of this amazing herb. And it is a bitter nervine. So what that means is it has a really bitter taste. And I'll just mention the tastes of the herbs because The Western palate is kind of weak.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've bred a lot of the medicinal components out of our herbs to make them taste better. So if you never have anything that is bitter, what that means is that all the compounds that are bitter, all the stuff that can support you in your body, you're just saying like, no, I don't want to do that. Or you take it in capsules, and capsules are definitely great for convenience, but our digestion starts on the tongue. So if possible, you do actually want to taste the herbs. That being said, I understand meeting people where they're at, but with blue vervain, and we have this one in a tincture here. So drop it on the tongue. You taste the bitterness right away, but the bitterness starts the action. It's a nervine, which means it's active on the nervous system. And this is one that I can feel the stress immediately come off the nervous system based on that action there. So this is a great one for calming down. It can be great from when you're in your head too much and need to get into your body, when you're ending your workday, when you need to shift to go to bed, it can be useful there. So that's one of my favorite herbs that kind of works on the recovery, the relaxing side of things.
Now, I guess a lot of these would be available at your company, Lost Empire Herbs, I assume. So tell me a little bit about the company. What's it all about? What's its mission? And maybe how people can access some of the products you're talking about.
Yeah. So the name Lost Empire Herbs, really we see nature as the lost empire. It's that most of the health problems that, well, definitely there's more chronic disease than there is acute disease these days, right? And this is because humanity has gone in the direction of removing ourselves more and more from nature. And of course, there are some valid reasons we did that, but we have definitely gone overboard in doing that. And a lot of what we see now is because of doing that. So we want to guide people back into living in more harmony with nature, more balance with it. And one of the kind of easy ways to do that is introducing these herbal substances into our body in different ways that can help and support us. And really, of course, we want to do this in addition to other lifestyle steps like going and spending time in nature, which is very phenomenal for your health just in doing that. But as I said, me and my two brothers started it, and we all had different kind of athletic focuses. So one of my brothers was running barefoot marathons, and that's how he kind of was using the herbs to excel in performance as well. And as we just kind of got started, what we really wanted to have a company that we were proud of. And, you know, so many supplement companies out there are kind of like fly by night. There's definitely shady stuff going on. You know, you're in the industry, so you're aware of what is out there, and not necessarily great customer service, all these other problems. So we wanted something that we were proud of, and we were our first customers in doing this. So this was the stuff we were using, and we just started spreading it to other people. So nowadays, some of the interesting, unique stuff we do is we do a lot with Spagyric tinctures. Spagyric is a word not many people are going to be familiar with. It is related to alchemy. So when I say alchemy, everyone thinks about turning lead into gold, right? And yeah, that was part of alchemy, something that they were trying, but a large part of alchemy was really about producing medicine and producing different things that could help with not only our health, but our sort of evolution as well. And some of this had to do with working with the metals. That's actually like the advanced part of it, but kind of an easier route in was working with herbs and animals and different things like that. So there are certain processes of producing a tincture. So a normal tincture, you're going to have the herbal stuff, soak it in alcohol and water, press that off, and then you have your tincture once it's done. With the Spagyric steps, the stuff that you press off the bulk herb is then going to be burned and ground down until it becomes a white ash, grayish ash powder. And this will be filtered to get the insoluble minerals from the soluble minerals. The insoluble minerals are then evaporated down, and it'll actually form crystals. Depending on your herb you're working with, there can be crystals of different shapes. It can be quite fun to watch. But these crystals are then added back into the herbal tincture. So this is adding kind of the mineral component, the body, back into it, and therefore it works better in the human body. And there's some interesting mechanisms by which it does that. But this is really a largely lost art that is nowadays it's starting to see a bit more of a resurgence. So not all of our tinctures, but many of our tinctures are produced in this method, and it creates some stuff that is more potent than a lot of stuff that's on the market.
Where can we find your company or follow you on social media?
Yeah. Well, lostempireherbs.com is the website, and you'll of course find links to the social media on there. It's Lost Empire Herbs across most of the channels. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So definitely a few places to check us out.
Very cool. Well, we'll put all the the links in the show notes. Final question: where do you see kind of your career evolving with both the company and your acts of strength? Is something you're going to be doing? You're going to be like the 90-year-old strongman
I think so.
entrepreneur?
I plan to age like a fine wine. So the older I get, I think the better I'll get in many different ways. I'm about to hit my 40th birthday in a couple weeks, so yeah, just arriving into middle age. So now I'm getting closer to my customers' age, because a lot of them are older demographic, because really they're seeing the decline and want to get that. So yeah, I plan to continue with the strongman stuff. I don't know exactly where all it will take me, and I plan to continue working with the herbs, and there's definitely some deeper rabbit holes I can follow there. I'm on the alchemical path, so there's quite a bit distance I have not yet explored, and I definitely plan to.
Well, this has been enlightening. Thank you for taking the time. I'm excited. I'm really interested in trying some of your pine pollen. I'm a big fan of pine pollen. I'd love to try yourself out. So, of course, the website is Lost Empire Herbs, and this is Logan Christopher. You can follow him on the social media points. We'll put those links into the show notes. But this has been enlightening.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you kind of opening the door into kind of the strong men and mentality of the historical aspects, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our readers or listeners will love that as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wade.
And there you have it, folks. You can get stronger at any age, and you don't have to rely on harmful chemicals, but you may need to be augmented by Lost Empire Herbs. And if you get a chance, go check out his site. Appreciate having you on the show. And of course, for all of us at Bioptimizers, thank you for joining the show, and we'll see you on the next episode.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.